Let's change the channel. Jenny Salisa.
Mr Chair, thank you for this call on the education legislation bill, and I'd like to talk about two things that this bill is going to do, Mr Chair. One, it will enable principals to manage more than one school. It will bring in what I would call a CEO-type person to manage a group of schools. And second, it would allow tertiary education institutions to sponsor charter schools, or as this government calls it, partnership schools. And I'd like to start with the charter schools, Mr Chair. We strongly oppose the expansion of charter schools. This is an initiative that is still not based on evidence that it actually works for our most vulnerable Māori and Pacific students in particular. Charter schools model was introduced here into Aotearoa, New Zealand, because we were promised they will deliver better educational outcomes for our Māori and Pacifica students. We have not seen to date, Mr Chair, evidence that this actually has happened. In fact, when we look at the results, there's not very much difference between the results of charter schools students versus those who attend state schools. So why is it that we are going to expand this model, put even more millions of dollars into a model that is not yet evidence-based, when, on the other hand, we're freezing the operational budget for our actual state schools? We're freezing that. We're going to go and ask the parents to put even more money from their own pockets to assist with funding schools so that they can run. And instead, we're going to invest millions and millions of dollars more to this untested, unproven charter school model. We already know from our own experience in Aotearoa, New Zealand, that charter schools has not worked, at least one. This government has closed a failed school, Whangaruru. $5.5 million that's gone down the drain of our taxpayers' money. So is it very wise that in addition to knowing there's already one school that's failed, we're going to allow tertiary education institutions to open up and become partnership schools or charter school funders? Mr Chair, our polytechnics already have issues of their own that they're dealing with. For instance, tertiary providers, as we all know, have been caught enrolling staff members to make up the numbers, to boost the numbers. They themselves have their own fiscal issues that they're going through right now. Why would we actually, instead of having them focus on what they deal with, which is tertiary education, just looking at the name, tertiary education institution providers, we're going to allow them to open up their doors and to serve our compulsory sector children, as well as some of our primary school probably, if this government would have its way. But it is an unproven model. Millions and millions of our own dollars going down an unproven, untested model that has not actually shown the results. And also, Mr Chair, sorry, when we were sold this model, this wonderful market-driven model, we were told, one of the things that we were told is that it would bring in private funding. It would bring in corporations with their own funds, with their own capital to assist in delivering things for our educational outcomes, for our students. It has not. So this bill allowing tertiary providers to become charter school providers is really an admission from this government that they've failed. They've failed to attract the capital and the funds from private providers that they said they would actually do. But I turn now, Mr Chair, to my colleague Chris Hipkins' SOP, which is SOP 219. It will remove the ability of tertiary institutions to sponsor a charter school. A very good SOP, and I'm hopeful that members of the opposite side will join us on this side and make sure that this SOP is actually approved. Mr Chair, the other issue that I would like to turn to now is principals running a multiple school. As I said earlier, a CEO-type person running a group of schools. The idea that one principal can run 2, 3, 4 schools very well, Mr Chair, is not one that I think has come from principals themselves. In fact, if I quote the President, Louise Green of NZEI, she quotes, "Principals work hard. They are principals of leading the schools that they are principals of. It is not a part-time job. She's absolutely right, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair?
Jenny Solisa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is not a part-time job. So why do we think that actually having a principal run 2 schools, 3 or 4, is actually something that would work, when a principal running 1 school is a huge job on its own? And I would like to now talk about one of the schools that is in my electorate, that currently has been awarded by the Prime Minister as the best, the most outstanding school of this year, Macaulay Girls High School. Now, you would think that when you look at a principal that would be capable, competent of becoming a CEO type principal of a group of schools, it'll be this principal, Anne Miles. But Mr. Chair, she will not have a part of becoming a principal of more than just 1 school. She is focused on ensuring that the results that she delivers for her current students, about 800 students, that is something that she actually continues to do. And she says that she is so focused on making sure that her students are served well. You know, one of the things that she does, because it is a decile B school, and because she sees so many students come through that don't have funding to buy school uniforms or to buy stationery or even to eat, this principal actually goes out fundraising. She goes out fundraising to assist her students. And she cannot see how combining the role of running a school very well, as well as ensuring that she serves the current students that she does already have, about 800 of them, very well. She does not see dividing her time and dividing her expertise amongst many schools as something that she would like to do. But she is exactly the kind of principal that we should be looking at, that the government should be looking at as someone who knows what she's doing, someone who within the last 10 to 20 years has improved the academic standing of the school that she is currently in charge of. And Mr. Chair, if a principal like her will not have anything to do with this kind of a school that is allowed to actually be run by 1 super principal, Mr. Chair, which else would we actually, what kind of other principal are we actually going to allow to run such a school? Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Todd Muller.